Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Play Civilization 6, Deity. This is episode 2 of our Mongolia attempt, and last time we ended right at the end of the classical era. We're entering the medieval era now with our research and our civics. You can see we're researching apprenticeship and working on our civic for defensive tactics. And the big news is this barbarian encampment to the south is finally taken over. You can see our warriors are going to die, but they were able to finally secure that barbarian encampment to reduce the spawn. So you can see with its dying breath, it spawned a man-at-arms. So that barbarian man-at-arms, goes ahead and takes out our warriors. But that's okay. We had complained a little bit that our expansion may have been slowed down a little bit by our need to focus on that barbarian encampment, and now it's gone. I don't think we're too far behind. We're going to focus on doing the optimal things. We've got the World Congress here. Just a couple of policies that people are choosing between about... I don't really know how to evaluate this one about generating more grievances and such. So it's unlikely to win diplomatic policy particularly early. I'm usually not willing to commit a lot of my diplomatic points. We have 76 of them right now. I'm usually not willing to commit a lot of them in the early game just because I think those policies aren't super important. And it's hard to know how many you would need to commit in order to win. A lot of times you commit 100 points. We don't even have 100, but let's say we committed 100 points, and then you lose anyway. So it was all for nothing. It was just a waste. You don't like to see that happen. So I tend not to spend those points very early on anyway, and it looks like I don't even know how to evaluate the grievances one. So we're just going to focus on ourselves right now. There's also so much of the world that we haven't met, which is kind of funny that we're already voting on World Congress resolutions when the only people that we have met are the Australian Empire and the Cree Empire. So that also has a big impact on our inability to meaningfully engage in those votes. We're going to make sure our governors are in the optimal places. We are recruiting a new governor here. We're going to send them over to our city to the east, while our other two governors, Magnus and the expansion lady, who also improves your gold output later on, are going to stay in the cities they're in right now. The lady who improves your gold, one of the things she's doing right now, one of her policies is you get gold for every citizen in the city. I don't think we've unlocked that bonus yet, but I do think we've unlocked the bonus of +2 gold to unimproved features in the city. And because we have so many rainforest tiles, you can see up there, all of our tiles have 2 gold on them, either because we've improved them with a plantation and plantations give +2 gold, or because it's an unimproved feature which gets +2 gold from this lady. Something I've not been very discerning about is which city-states we're going to bother to work on the quests for. You can see our best city-state friend is a religious city-state, and we've already given up on being able to go for a religion ourselves. We didn't get one in the early game, and then all the great profits were taken before we really had any opportunity to work on that. We're going to send that builder to go improve another bananas, just all these plantations. Going to rake in that dough. You can see we're actually sitting on quite a big lump sum of money right now, 600 gold. You could buy a builder with that. You could buy a water wheel with that, but we've focused on our builder and water wheel needs at the very beginning of the game, such that I don't think there's a big advantage to speeding anything up with gold right now. We need to just get building some districts finally. You can see we're going to do that in Ulaanbaatar. Anyway, they're building a commercial hub. We just got a commercial hub done in our capital. Now we're going to build another districts. Where this is the part of the game where you really start focusing on your districts. It's important to figure out which districts you want to build, what order you want to build them in. I often get tied up on making sure I have the best adjacency bonuses for all of my districts, but it's actually far more important to just make sure that you prioritize the most important districts first. So commercial hubs are going to be very valuable. You can see I mentioned we already have an economic advantage right now. Leveraging that more in our favor, I think, is going to be useful. building an encampment district in our second city, or our city to the north, rather. I think it was our second city. These names are so hard. I really need to figure out a better naming scheme for future playthroughs, so that way I can just say city A, city B, or at least have names that are pronounceable, my goodness. But yeah, in our second city, the one that's just to the north of our capital, we're going to work on an encampment district. Not often the most important district, but at some point we are going to want to militarize our way through these opponents here. The Kree have these 3 cities that we can see all super close to us. It's kind of frustrating. That one that is closest to us that has a long name that starts with the letter P, that one looks pretty vulnerable, actually. I had mentioned earlier that attacking the Kree might be difficult just because of difficult terrain considerations, but that particular city, it's got the natural wonder in the way, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is there's a lot more open room for our archers or a ranged unit to attack that city. But the bad news is you can't position city units on the natural wonder very conveniently. You actually can, but because it's a watery natural wonder, we would be embarked. Here you can see the decision making that was discussed in episode 1. If you didn't hear that conversation, you get to hear a little bit of it now. We're choosing to build a barracks in our second city, even though we have a special stable because barracks are just cheaper to build. I think that was a 3-turn advantage on how soon we get the barracks out. And I just don't want to wait 3 extra turns to get a building that does basically the same thing unless we're building cavalry units. We probably will be building cavalry units, but it's a minor advantage relative to just, I don't know, 3 turns now. I don't know when we're going to be building cavalry units. We still haven't researched stirrups. So our opponents don't seem like they're going to be aggressive on us. Speaking of being aggressive, one thing that is going to be our downfall here is a lack of room to expand within our own free will right now, because we have not bothered to go down the sailing and cartography, shipbuilding, all of those civics. Not civics, technologies across the top of the technology tree, because we've wanted to focus on getting to stirrups, which is down the middle, because that's where our advantage will be, is with the Keshig, our special unit. And it makes sense to focus on your special unit advantage and all that jazz, but unfortunately that does mean that we are... Okay, we're going to send this to Melbourne. It does mean that we are not able to settle cities over the ocean. And so the only places... There are no more places to settle cities. We can settle down in the tundra, but that's not going to be worth our time. And now we have these opponents that have kind of created a wall against us. We're really going to need to find a way to leverage the cities that have already been founded on our north and east if we want to win this game in the long run, because we might get away with not going to war if we had a few more places to settle cities, but we just don't. Still going to focus on optimizing the districts, the gold, the science, optimize those trade routes. We do have, I think, 1 more trade route available. None of our cities are working on it, and trade routes are especially important. If you remember the Mongolia advantage of getting trading posts immediately upon creating trade routes, as well as the diplomatic visibility aiding in your military conquests. Went ahead and bought a builder here because we want to get the advantage of the builder sooner rather than later, while the city continues to build its basic development buildings and ultimately its development districts as well. It's built just a commercial hub and going to work on buildings for that district. Hami is also going to work on a commercial hub, so now we're going to have commercial hub in every single city. It is kind of nice to specialize like this because of the policy slots about bonus to buildings from a certain district or bonus to adjacency from a certain district. There are advantages to diversifying which cities are doing what, depending on the features that are going to give the best adjacency bonuses for certain cities. Though the Theater Square district doesn't really come by its adjacency bonuses naturally, and every city wants to have a campus district, really. And so once you eliminate those two, there really isn't a lot of opportunity for diversifying or a lot of reason to diversify, since yeah, like right here we're gonna get a bonus to our campus adjacency bonus because we just want to build a campus in every single city. Once we have the campuses built, you can see we have the option to build a library in our capital. It's probably what we're going to work on, yeah. No, let's get one more settler, and then we'll come back for that library. Maybe we'll buy the library. We have been spending our gold here and there, so we're not like stockpiling a whole bunch of gold, which is an important thing to do. Always spend gold if you have good opportunities to spend gold. Stockpiling it serves very little advantage, unless you think you might need to buy emergency units in case of a war. That was an unexpected delight, if you noticed in that World Congress. We actually were voted as the recipient of an extra trade route. AI has incentive to do that because their trade routes to us are going to be better for them now, but also we just get one more trade route. Makes me a little bit sad that we've been sleeping on creating our maximum trade routes, because now we have 2 traders to build instead of just 1. You can see our city to the north is currently working on a trader, but we'll be able to get even another trader up on top of that temporarily until the World Congress effect wears off. Kind of, like I said, a pleasant surprise. This settler, where are we going to send them? I decided that we needed one more settler, but honestly, I'm doing so with a little bit of faith. I think the only reasonable place to do is to the northwest, by that gypsum. There are a lot of desert tiles there, and there's not easy access to fresh water, but we can build an aqueduct connecting the city to that mountain that is just to the west of our capital, so we might put a city there. There's also these tundra tiles down here. They're not great for settling a city, but there's that horse tile that's a 2-2 next to that mountain, and then there's river and stuff. So we might choose to settle in the tundra as well. At this point, it's just kind of a desperation play. Like I said, the inability to settle over waters or expand because of the being surrounded by the Kree Empire, really is the empire that's done it, and not yet having a military to do anything about it has put us in this place of desperation, which, if you're really thinking big picture, a lot of that is contributed to by the fact that we had to focus on dealing with that barbarian encampment to the south for so many turns, like 30 turns of the early game, which may have slowed us down by just one extra city that we could have settled to the north or to the east before the Kree got in our way entirely. That's okay. Play the hand that's dealt to you. We're gonna get this settler. We're gonna settle. Gosh darn it, whether we like it or not, it's gonna be somewhere. And even if it has slow yields, if we can get at least a campus district or a commercial hub district, the city will ultimately pay for itself over the course of a 300-turn game. Now we're choosing all of these trade routes nice and steady. You can see the yields in this tundra area have actually just improved because of this storm. So a little bit of improvement in the yields due to the storm means we'll probably settle down here in the tundra first. But yeah, this area up here to the northwest is also an option. We'll probably do both eventually. Again, mostly out of desperation. These aren't great places to settle cities, but a city is better than no city, and our capital doesn't have too many terribly important things to build. We talked about that library, but besides that, our capital is running out of important things to do. I was actually going to build another settler right away. So I've already identified 2 potentially valuable spots, and even though they're weak overall, if the capital doesn't have anything else to work on, might as well build settlers in the capital. We can get another governor improvement. We've already the last one promotion we did was the gold promotion I talked about with our expansion lady. So this one was a little bit trickier to decide. We'll go ahead and promote Magnus though, and continue to move forward. Research complete. This is kind of a big milestone here. We have now completed stirrups. We haven't decided what we want to do with our stirrups. We could just start spamming Keshigs and trust that we'll find the target. But I think it's going to be better. Oh, I didn't. I kind of just I brushed over. I didn't even brush over it. Just came and went unceremoniously. But we have met the English Empire. I am not sure from where. I think from overseas. Don't think she's on our continent. And that gives us a little catalyst to optimize our. Oh, he really wants the citrus, apparently. But that gives us an opportunity. He doesn't have a lot of gold, so we can only trade for upfront gold instead of gold per turn. But we're going to optimize our luxury resources that we can sell to these other people on our continent. You can see that we were friendly with Australia, and oh my goodness, we were friendly with Australia and the Cree literally last turn, and Australia just declared war on us. How unusual. They're not particularly close to us. We're actually going to... We just got open borders with the Cree, so maybe we can go ahead and attack Melbourne. His timing is very serendipitous for us, having just researched the Keshig. Send some archers up there to explore what's going on. Archers aren't going to be very strong in this battle by themselves, I would guess. I'm not sure exactly where Australia is in their military technology and research, but yeah, you can see we've locked in the price with commercial hub in that new city out in the tundra. Okay, so he's got a trebuchet and some warrior monks. Warrior monks are a medieval era unit. Our archer will comfortably run away now that we've done some scouting. With the Cree Empire in between us and Australia, I don't imagine them being a nuisance. They can come by water. Maybe they have a big navy we'll have to worry about. We're just going to have to continue to be wary, keep our eye out, see what Australia has up their sleeve. Okay, this city over here in the west, yeah, we'll buy a library and build another district. Just get working on... You can't buy districts, so it makes sense to do it this way. Build that encampment. Or, yeah, build that encampment after we've bought the... This is nice, after we've bought the library. This is nice. We can shoot at some of these units from over this little stretch of water. They retreated away, it looks like, but I think we're going to be super defensible. I'm not worried about defense. I am worried about our ability to be offensive, though, because if we don't have an opportunity... If we don't take this opportunity to attack, we will not win this game. So... laboring right now about how we want to trade off between building more districts. You can see we're working on a entertainment complex in one city and another commercial hub in another city, versus let's just start spamming units. We're gonna wait on the unit spam for just a moment, and that makes sense. With war happening, war weariness will come upon our northernmost cities at some point because Australia is to the north, and so getting that entertainment complex will pay dividends, as well as being an opportunity to take care of loyalty issues potentially. Entertainment complexes, if you don't know, unlock the ability for you to perform a project in the city. Bread and Circus is what it's called, which improves the loyalty pressure from that city within 9 tiles. And so if we did ever want to capture Melbourne, for example, and there was a loyalty issue, we could perform the Bread and Circus project to hold on to Melbourne, potentially. Alright, where are we going to want this settler? Way in the south to the tundra? No, it's going to be this spot to the northwest that I had hypothesized about earlier. It's really the only reasonable location. It's not even a reasonable location. It's again, I mentioned this before, but it's really a desperation play. Continue to just optimize our trade with the 2 civilizations that we have met that are not at war with us. One of the most annoying things about going to war with Australia is that we can't trade with them anymore. And holy cow, Kumasi apparently is allied with Australia, and they've got these musketmen. Fortunately, we are able to improve these archers to crossbowmen, so I think we should be safe against these musketmen, but that is a lot more annoying and a lot more scary than if Kumasi were not at war with us. Really unfortunate that Kumasi, of all the city-states that Australia was allied with, it had to be allied with the one that's right on our doorstep, Kumasi. Oh well, we'll get some free experience from our crossbowmen. You can see we already upgraded to crossbowmen. That's the 2nd upgrade we've been able to give to it. We were able to shoot at some warrior monks that were embarked in the water from Australia. They ran away. Now we'll go back to attacking these musketmen. Get this other city settled, Iryai. And we're going to lock in. We're not going to lock in. Not sure what districts we want to build there. He already is trying to offer peace. I mentioned it was unfortunate that we go to war with Australia because now we can't trade with them, but honestly, Australia had such bad economy anyway that we weren't missing out on a lot of gold because they just didn't have gold to offer us per turn in exchange for our luxuries or other things. Yeah, we're going to lock in the cost of that aqueduct. I did mention we wanted to build an aqueduct in that city to connect it to a fresh water source, to that mountain actually. And so we're going to work on that aqueduct. And that'll also boost this military engineering technology that we're working on right now. Build an aqueduct. I think that's the boost that we want to do. So building an aqueduct is going to be nice. It's easy to go for the first several. We're at turn, what is this, 150 something? Around 150, rather. It's really easy to go that long without having any need to build an aqueduct for freshwater purposes. If a city already has access to fresh water, there's really no need to build an aqueduct. The aqueduct will only provide 2 additional housing. And a lot of times that's just not worth it because aqueducts can take a while and have to be built next to your city center, which a lot of times you build your city center intentionally close to your best yields. And for all of these reasons, it's really easy to get this far without having any opportunity to build an aqueduct. In this case, we do have an opportunity to build an aqueduct, and it's also probably worth it just because it is a technology boost. Though we might forget to stop researching military engineering, or just decide that we needed, it's also reasonable to just say we need the military engineering now and we can't wait around to build that aqueduct. But because ultimately there is a boost for building an aqueduct, it's usually worth it to think about choosing one city deliberately for a place to build a nice aqueduct, deliberately away from a river so that it can build an aqueduct to a river, for example. Some niter down here in that tundra makes this random city that we settled way better. A nice high yield tile in the tundra that we wouldn't normally have had. Our crossbowmen are going to take some damage from Melbourne, but no time like the present. We don't see a lot of resistance of units, so let's attack the city, get those walls whittling down. Australia is going to continue to want peace, and we're going to continue to say no. You can see we are now starting to spam units in our northernmost city. Let's get some crossbowmen. Let's get them in there. Also, the usefulness of crossbowmen. I know the Keshik is a ranged unit, but the usefulness of crossbowmen just alone, and ranged units in general, and siege units, are all big reasons to take the barracks over that stable. Just once again harping on this idea that the 3 extra turns to build a stable, even when it's Mongolia's special building, is just not going to pay off for most of the game because you're just not building cavalry units that much more than you're building all the other units that want you to have a barracks. Our capital is producing quite a few units. The capital is running out of things to do, of course, which is why we were settling some desperation cities by giving our capital something to do by at least building some settlers. But now that we're at war, it's got some useful things to do. And those Keshiks, even though the capital's kind of far away, the really nice thing about cavalry, and this is the thing you should not underestimate about cavalry in general, is their speed. Building cavalry units far away from the action is very affordable so long as you understand that the movement speed will get you back in the game. And that's what we're going to take advantage of here as the Mongolian Empire. So we're very excited about that. Got some free era score by finally getting like our first naval unit. You can see we're finally going up to shipbuilding. It may be that we want to settle across the seas. It may be that it will be too late to settle across the seas in consequence of course, England being a civilization somewhere out there on the water that has prioritized some highly advantageous settlement locations on the ocean. Can attack Melbourne pretty handily here. We have 2 melee units, and the ranged units will just circle in around. It doesn't look like a very defensible city. The archers are able to attack from all sorts of places around the city. There is a city-state that is to the east of Melbourne, Muscat, that is a little bit in our way as far as getting all of the locations for ranged units to attack the city, but I think we'll be able to work around it okay. People are starting to not care about our citrus, so only offering 1 gold up front, just basically to maintain the niceties of, hey, we're willing to trade with you, but really not giving us anything in exchange for our luxury resource. And that's too bad because we have so much citrus. Okay, slow and steady. We're working down on Melbourne. I think we have a siege unit, coming. We have a trebuchet coming from our northernmost city, Carbachunen, something like that. And that trebuchet is going to do work that the crossbowmen could do, but would just be so much more slow than the... Oh, no. Big mistake. We were trying to take a shortcut by sending our trebuchet into the water, embarking them, and then we were going to disembark on that shore of Melbourne, but man, that caravel saw immediately and just took out our siege unit. Oh, that's a disaster. Got to work on more trebuchets now to try and go over and take out Melbourne. It's going to slow down the war quite a bit. Sad indeed. The war was already not looking that useful to us. Getting Melbourne would be nice, but one city is already just a small payout relative to how far behind we are in the whole scheme of the game, and consequence of our inability to settle very rapidly extra cities to the north and to the east. So any setback in the war is a big setback in our overall game plan. We're still at war with Kumasi, so these galleys are gonna work their way around the city. Might get shot at, shouldn't die, but hopefully give us some naval presence. They're not gonna stand a chance against the caravel though, but maybe they can protect a land unit that needs to embark from the caravel for a turn or two, as you see, was something that would have been very advantageous for us in the case of that trebuchet. Okay, they've got this pike and shot that is outside of their city. They also have a cavalry unit, and a cavalry unit is actually, even though it's still a horseback, it's, I think, the most advanced horseback unit in the game. It's quite the force to be reckoned with. It's heavy cavalry, very scary. It's pretty far along the tech tree on the bottom end of the tech tree, so we're not happy to see that. You can see we just have this extra trader here because the world government bonus of having an extra trade route has worn off, and so we have a trader that isn't allowed to do anything anymore. I transferred it to another city, but it's not going to be able to trade from that city either, and we'll see that again next turn. Australia continues to want peace, and we're going to continue to say no. Setback or not, losing that trebuchet and having to deal with this cavalry and these pike and shots. Those setbacks aside, we're going to take this city, and if we're going to continue to play this game and continue to stretch out our Mongolia attempt, we are going to take Melbourne. It's a priority, so no, we will not accept peace. We lost a melee unit there. Not a huge deal. We are going to need to get another melee unit in if we're ever going to take Melbourne, which is a little sad, but these ranged units are going to clean up the enemy Australian units. Technically, we could take Melbourne with a galley, so maybe we do that. Even with a caravel in the city, if we get the city down to 0 health, a galley would be able to take the city just fine. More than likely, though, we will train another melee unit. Maybe we'll buy one. Our economy is still doing okay. You can see we're at 259, it looks like. And that's not going to be enough to buy a reasonable melee unit from this era, so it'll probably have to be trained. Yeah, there we go. We have a man-at-arms that's coming to the north. Speaking of man-at-arms, there's a swordsman, a man-at-arms, and a pike and shot, and a cavalry. 4 different unit types, all up in Melbourne. They're not terribly scary units, though. They are a little bit advanced than us, as evidenced by the cavalry, which we have not researched. But the other 3 units are just not that scary, not that intimidating. That's why he's going to continue to ask for peace, because he knows he's in trouble. We've got some knights and horsemen actually now coming up to the north. Knight is a melee unit, so maybe that will be the melee unit. We do have another man-at-arms, so we have 2 melee units getting within range of Melbourne. The walls are almost down. This is going quite well. We'll see what the loyalty battle looks like after we take Melbourne. That's going to be the biggest concern, in my opinion, right now. Oh, that's ironic. Our open borders with the Kree Empire just wore off, and so our units got kicked out of their borders. It pushed some of our units closer to Melbourne, which isn't a bad thing, but some of them got pushed farther away from Melbourne, of course. So we're going to have to renegotiate open borders. We actually have an alliance with the Kree now, which is kind of fun. We're allianced with the Kree and at war with Australia, so we're moving through the Kree Empire borders in order to reach Australia. But it's not a big deal. We would like this Kree city that we're having to move through. It would be nice if that city were actually just our city, but that's just a dream. It's just a dream right now. Lots of great merchants were not really being competed with by the AI for these great merchants. We've built all of these commercial hubs, and now you can see it's paying off in dividends. The great merchants that you can earn over the course of the game are quite nice. A lot of them just give you straight up boost of gold in your treasury, and you can see we have now 600 gold just like that. We're actually getting a lot of gold per turn, so that's quite nice. But some of them give you extra envoy, some of them give you extra amenities, all of which are very, very nice bonuses. We're going to become allied with Muscat, which is going to be advantageous just because of how close they are to the action right now. Yeah, you can see that trader unable to make a trade route right now. It's just an extra trader that got built when we had an extra trade route capacity that has worn off. Gonna have to retreat this knight. Don't want him to die. We've lost a couple melee units, and of course that really one unfortunate trebuchet loss in this war. But really the war has gone quite well. It's okay to lose a unit or two here, especially melee units. In my opinion, I think the range units are better to hold on to just because I think they have stronger upgrades. Siege units have more important upgrades, but melee units, they have good upgrades too, but it's like they're just so much more likely to die because they're in the front lines anyway. So I usually don't lose too much focus over melee unit being lost here or there. The trebuchet was a real tragedy, but we recovered from it just fine. Once again, trying to optimize our trade, we now have an excess of incense as opposed to, I mean, we still have an excess of citrus, but nobody's really interested in our citrus anymore. But it looks like Elizabeth is quite interested in our incense, so we're happy about that. It's a big reason to have settled that weaker city to the west. Way back in the early game, in episode 1, we talked about how this is definitely a weaker city. There are desert tiles on these, and incense isn't that good of a yield anyway, but you can see that just the power of luxury resources inherently in our ability to trade away these weak incense tiles as luxury resources to England for just money per turn. Alright, they've still got units that we're clearing out. We've gotten rid of a lot of their melee units. There's this one right here that took out another one of our mounted units, which is unfortunate. But nice. Our knight goes in and finishes off that melee unit. And Melbourne, we're out of range of the city being able to attack us. So these units, the Keshig and the knight, they can go ahead and heal up while the trebuchet moves into position. Benefited from the allyship with Muscat. You can see how big of a deal it is to have stolen that allyship with Muscat. As soon as we get Melbourne, we're probably going to wrap up the episode, but we want to make sure we get Melbourne first. Don't want to leave before we do that. But this episode has been defined by a slow recovery from a weak early game into a forced aggression on Australia, who chose to attack us first. Something I have a hard time doing is pulling the trigger. Part of it is because you do generate grievances and warmongering penalties for declaring war on other civilizations. But part of it is just a little bit of laziness and not wanting to determine exactly which turn we go to war and stop building buildings and start building units. So it was a little bit of a blessing in disguise that Australia went to war with us, kind of forced our hand, and now we are going to get Melbourne. And one more thing that we're noticing here as we're wrapping up, this may be a defining moment at the end of episode 2, and as we start episode 3 next turn, we're going to have to be worrying about the loyalty issue in Melbourne. But now you can see there's this loyalty issue in the Cree Empire, and it may be that turns to our advantage. I mentioned how nice it would be to have this extra city in our empire as we're trying to sweep into our Australian war. Even though we're allies with the Cree, you're still allowed to take cities through loyalty from them. What's going on here is that the Cree is actually in a dark age, and we are in a normal age. And so the loyalty pressure per turn on that Cree city is maybe going to turn to our advantage. We'll see. It looks like the little free city fist has gone away from that Cree city. So we'll see if it actually ever flips and turns into a free city. All right, Melbourne is ours. We're going to wrap the episode up there. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll figure out if we can hold on to Melbourne in the next episode. See you next time. Bye.